The gym smelled of faint antiseptic and the metallic tang of weights. Noah adjusted his sleeves nervously as he glanced at his phone. This was his first session, and the butterflies in his stomach were relentless. Signing up for personal training had been a spur-of-the-moment decision, born of restlessness in a life that felt too stagnant. He spotted Oliver immediately. Even from across the room, Oliver radiated charisma. His easy confidence contrasted sharply with Noah's reserved demeanor. The trainer moved with a kind of deliberate energy, his broad shoulders and defined physique making him stand out, even in a sea of athletes. But it wasn't just his appearance that caught Noah's attention, it was the way Oliver carried himself, calm, approachable, yet undeniably commanding. "Noah, right?" Oliver's voice was warm, breaking through the hum of background chatter. "Yes," Noah replied, trying to muster a smile. "First session nerves?" Oliver asked, tilting his head slightly as if to read Noah's mind. "A little," Noah admitted. "I haven't done this before." "That's what I'm here for," Oliver reassured him. "We'll start easy. It's all about finding your rhythm, no pressure." They began with simple stretches. Oliver guided him through each motion with a mix of professionalism and subtle encouragement, his hands occasionally brushing Noah's arms or shoulders as he corrected his form. Each touch felt strangely electric, though Noah quickly dismissed the thought as his own nerves playing tricks. The session progressed, and Oliver's natural charm made it easier for Noah to relax. They exchanged snippets of conversation between sets, Oliver sharing light anecdotes about his early days as a trainer, Noah hesitantly opening up about his work as an architect and how long hours at his desk had left him out of shape. Yet, as they moved through the exercises, Noah couldn't shake the subtle feeling that Oliver was watching him closely, more than just a trainer ensuring proper technique. By the time the session ended, Noah was physically exhausted but mentally invigorated. As he wiped sweat from his brow, Oliver handed him a water bottle. "You did great today," Oliver said, his smile disarming. "You're stronger than you think." "Thanks," Noah replied, feeling a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with the workout. As he stepped out of the gym, the cool evening air hit his face. For the first time in months, he felt lighter, as though he'd shrugged off some invisible burden. He couldn't pinpoint exactly why, but the hours spent with Oliver had been different. Later that evening, Noah returned to his apartment, where James, his boyfriend of 4 years, sat on the couch scrolling through his phone. James barely looked up as Noah walked in. "How was the gym?" James asked, his tone distracted. "It was good," Noah replied, setting his bag down. He hesitated, expecting a follow-up question that never came. James continued scrolling, his attention glued to the screen. This had become their norm, conversations that fizzled out before they began, a silence between them that once felt comfortable but now seemed oppressive. Noah sat beside him, staring at the muted television. He wanted to share more about his day, about Oliver, about how he'd felt something shift in himself for the first time in months. But he knew James wouldn't understand. Lately, it seemed like they were speaking different languages, living parallel lives that rarely intersected. "Work was crazy today," James said suddenly, breaking the silence. "They're piling on new cases, and I barely have time to breathe." Noah nodded, offering a sympathetic smile. "You're always working so hard." "It's what I have to do," James replied, his tone flat. "I don't have a choice." As James launched into a monologue about his demanding job, Noah found himself tuning out. It wasn't that he didn't care, he did, but there was an emotional distance between them that he didn't know how to bridge. That night, as James fell asleep beside him, Noah lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His mind wandered back to the gym, to Oliver's reassuring smile and the way he'd felt truly seen, even if only for a fleeting hour. He told himself it was nothing, just a trainer doing his job, but the thought lingered longer than he wanted to admit. Over the next week, Noah's sessions with Oliver became the highlight of his days. Each meeting was a mix of challenging workouts and casual conversations that felt oddly therapeutic. Oliver had a way of making him feel at ease, drawing out parts of him that had been buried under routine and neglect. One afternoon, as they finished a particularly grueling set, Oliver leaned against the weight rack, studying Noah thoughtfully. "You're pushing yourself harder than most people I train," Oliver said. "Why?" Noah hesitated, caught off guard by the question. I just want to feel like I'm in control of something." Oliver nodded, his expression softening. "I get that. Life can feel overwhelming sometimes." Noah met his gaze, feeling an unspoken understanding pass between them. It was a fleeting moment, but it felt significant, like a thread tying them together in ways neither of them fully realized yet. As they packed up for the day, Oliver casually asked, "What's the plan for the weekend?" "Not much," Noah replied. "Probably just relaxing at home with James." "James?" Oliver's tone was curious but not intrusive. "My boyfriend," Noah explained, feeling a pang of guilt for not mentioning him earlier. Oliver nodded, his expression unreadable. "Sounds nice. You guys must have a solid relationship to last that long." Noah forced a smile. "Yeah, we do." But even as he said the words, they felt hollow. Noah walking home, his thoughts a tangle of guilt, confusion, and a growing sense of longing he couldn't quite name. The memory of Oliver's words echoed in his mind, and for the first time in a long while, he wondered if he was truly happy or just comfortable. The cool evening air seemed to press down on him, heavy with unanswered questions. Noah knew he was standing at the edge of something that could either pull him back to safety or push him into uncharted territory. And as he reached his apartment door, he realized he wasn't sure which he wanted more. Noah gripped the pull-up bar tightly, his arms trembling with exertion. Oliver stood beside him, his tone both firm and encouraging. "Come on, Noah. Just one more. You've got this." The words carried a warmth that cut through the burn in his muscles. Noah pushed himself upward, the strain in his arms matched only by the steady rise of pride in Oliver's voice when he finally let go and landed on his feet. "See? Stronger than you think," Oliver said with a grin, handing him a towel. "Thanks," Noah replied, trying to steady his breathing. He couldn't ignore how Oliver's smile had a way of making the gym lights feel just a little brighter. But as much as these moments with Oliver gave him a sense of accomplishment, they also brought an undercurrent of guilt. Every time he returned home to James, the silence between them felt heavier, more oppressive. Their interactions were reduced to the essentials. What's for dinner? How was work? Did you feed the cat? Conversations that once brimmed with ease now felt forced, like a script they were too tired to rewrite. It wasn't just the lack of words, it was the absence of connection. James had grown busier than ever, his hours at the law firm extending late into the night. Noah tried to tell himself that this was normal, that relationships went through lulls, but the gap between them only seemed to widen with each passing day. One evening, after another session with Oliver, Noah returned home to find James on the couch, his laptop balanced precariously on his knees. A cold plate of leftovers sat untouched on the coffee table. "Hey," Noah said softly, setting his bag down. "Hey," James mumbled without looking up. Noah lingered in the doorway, unsure how to bridge the chasm that had formed between them. He wanted to tell James about his day, about how Oliver had pushed him harder than ever and how good it felt to rise to the challenge. But something stopped him, perhaps the fear that James wouldn't care, or worse, that he would. "You should eat," Noah said instead, nodding toward the untouched food. Later, James replied, typing furiously. Noah sighed, retreating to the bedroom. He sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The image of Oliver's encouraging smile flickered in his mind, unbidden and unwelcome. He hated that he was starting to look forward to those smiles more than he did to coming home. The next session with Oliver felt different. There was an intensity in the air, unspoken but palpable. Noah couldn't tell if it was his own guilt or something in the way Oliver watched him. Attentive, observant, almost protective. "You seem distracted today," Oliver said as they finished a set of squats. "Just life stuff," Noah replied vaguely, avoiding Oliver's gaze. Oliver nodded, his expression thoughtful. Want to talk about it? Noah hesitated. He knew he shouldn't, that unloading his personal issues on his trainer crossed a line. But there was something about Oliver's presence that felt safe, like he wouldn't judge, only listen. It's my boyfriend, Noah admitted finally. James. Things have been difficult? Oliver leaned against the wall, crossing his arms. Difficult how? We barely talk anymore, Noah said, his voice tinged with frustration. He's always busy, always distracted. It's like we're roommates, not partners. Oliver was silent for a moment, his gaze steady. That sounds tough. Have you told him how you feel? Noah laughed bitterly. I've tried, but it doesn't change anything. I don't even know if he notices how far apart we've grown. The vulnerability in his voice surprised him. He hadn't realized how much he needed to say these things out loud. I get it, Oliver said quietly. I've been there before, stuck in a relationship where it feels like you're the only one trying. The admission caught Noah off guard. He looked at Oliver, seeing a flicker of pain in his usually composed expression. What happened? Noah asked, unable to resist. Oliver shrugged. Eventually, I realized I deserved better. That staying in something that doesn't make you happy isn't fair to either person. The words lingered in the air, heavy with implication. Noah looked away, the guilt gnawing at him again. He didn't want to admit how much he related to Oliver's story. That night, as Noah lay in bed, James beside him with his back turned, he replayed Oliver's words in his mind. Staying in something that doesn't make you happy isn't fair to either person. Was he unhappy? Or was he just restless, yearning for something he couldn't quite define? And if he was unhappy, did that mean James was too? The questions kept him awake long after James had fallen asleep. 2 days later, Noah found himself at the gym earlier than usual, hoping to clear his mind before his session with Oliver. He was midway through a set when Oliver walked in, surprised to see him. You're here early, Oliver said, grabbing a water bottle and sitting on the bench beside him. Couldn't sleep, Noah admitted. Oliver studied him for a moment before nodding. Want to go for a walk instead of training today? Sometimes a change of pace helps. Noah hesitated, then agreed. They left the gym and wandered down a quiet trail nearby, the crisp autumn air brushing against their faces. For a while, they walked in silence, the only sound the crunch of leaves beneath their feet. Eventually, Oliver spoke. You don't have to answer this, but do you love him, James? The question hit Noah like a punch to the gut. He stopped walking, staring at the ground. I don't know, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Oliver didn't push, simply waiting as Noah wrestled with his thoughts. I think I do, Noah continued. But I don't know if it's the same kind of love it used to be. It feels different. Faded. Oliver nodded, his expression unreadable. Love's complicated like that. But you owe it to yourself, and to him, to figure out what you want. They stood there for a long moment, the weight of the conversation settling over them. For the first time in weeks, Noah felt like he could breathe, like he wasn't carrying his doubts alone. As they walked back to the gym, Noah felt a strange mixture of clarity and confusion. He didn't know what the future held, but he knew one thing for certain. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. Noah returning home, standing outside his apartment door, and hesitating before stepping inside. Something had shifted within him, and he knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. The rain was light, a steady drizzle that blurred the city lights outside Noah's apartment. He sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the half-empty glass of wine on the coffee table. James was in the kitchen, clattering pots and pans as he prepared dinner. Normally, Noah would appreciate the gesture, but tonight it felt like a performance, a routine they'd both perfected to avoid deeper conversations. Noah knew he couldn't avoid it anymore. His sessions with Oliver had forced him to confront the cracks in his life, cracks he'd spent months pretending weren't there. James walked into the room, wiping his hands on a towel. Dinner will be ready in 20 minutes, he said casually, sitting down across from Noah. James, Noah began, his voice firmer than he expected. James looked up, startled by the tone. What is it? We need to talk. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. James set the towel aside, leaning forward. But talk about what? Noah took a deep breath. About us. About where we're headed. James's brow furrowed. Where is this coming from? It's been coming for a while, Noah said. We've been drifting apart, James. You know it as much as I do. James opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself, his expression softening. I know things haven't been great, he admitted. Work's been insane, and I know I've been distant, but I thought we were okay. I thought we were just in a rough patch. Noah shook his head. It's more than that. We barely talk anymore. We barely even touch. It feels like we're just coexisting. James leaned back, running a hand through his hair. So what are you saying? You want to break up? Noah hesitated, his chest tightening. I don't know. I just know that I can't keep going like this. I do more. James stared at him, his expression a mixture of hurt and frustration. More? From me? Or from someone else? The question landed like a punch. Noah's mind flashed to Oliver, his easy smile, the way he listened, the way he made Noah feel seen. He hadn't crossed any lines with Oliver, not physically, but emotionally he wasn't so sure. There's no one else, Noah said quietly, half a truth. But there's a part of me that feels like I've already lost you. James's shoulders sagged. I didn't realize you felt this way. Why didn't you say something sooner? I tried, Noah said, his voice breaking. But every time I brought it up, it felt like you weren't really listening. And after a while, I stopped trying. The silence between them was deafening. James looked down at his hands, his jaw tight. I don't want to lose you, James said finally, his voice low. I know I've messed up, but I still love you, Noah. I don't know how to fix this. Noah felt tears sting his eyes. I love you too, James. But love isn't enough if we're not willing to fight for it. They sat there for a long time, neither of them speaking, the weight of their shared history pressing down on them. The next day, Noah went to the gym, unsure of what he was looking for. Oliver was waiting for him, as usual, but there was a tension in the air that neither of them addressed. You okay? Oliver asked as they started their warm-up. Noah nodded, though it was clear he wasn't. They moved through the session in near silence, the usual banter and lightheartedness absent. When they finished, Oliver handed him a water bottle and leaned against the wall, watching him closely. You don't have to tell me what's going on, Oliver said, his voice gentle. But if you need someone to talk to, I'm here. Noah looked at him, the sincerity in his eyes making it hard to breathe. He wanted to confide in Oliver, to pour out everything he was feeling, but he knew it wasn't fair, to Oliver, to James, or to himself. Thank you, Noah said finally. But I think this is something I need to figure out on my own. Oliver nodded, his expression unreadable. I get it. Just know that you're stronger than you think, Noah. Whatever you decide, you'll get through it. As Noah left the gym, he felt a strange sense of clarity. Oliver had been right about so many things, but this wasn't about him. This was about Noah finally taking control of his own life, his own happiness. That evening, Noah sat down with James again. This time, there were no accusations, no anger, just honesty. I've been thinking a lot about us, Noah said, his voice steady. And I think we need to take a step back. James looked at him, his eyes glassy. What do you mean? I mean that we need time apart. To figure out who we are and what we want, separately, Noah said. I don't know if this is the end for us, but I know we can't keep pretending everything's fine when it's not. James nodded slowly, tears slipping down his cheeks. I don't want to lose you, he whispered. And I don't want to lose myself, Noah replied. They sat together, holding hands for what felt like hours, the silence between them no longer oppressive but bittersweet. In the weeks that followed, Noah threw himself into his own life, reconnecting with friends, rediscovering old hobbies, and continuing his sessions at the gym. Oliver remained a steady presence, but their relationship stayed strictly professional. Noah knew he wasn't ready for anything more, and for the first time, he was okay with that. One evening, as Noah walked home from the gym, the city lights glowing softly around him, he felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He didn't have all the answers, but he was finally asking the right questions. And that, he realized, was enough. The end.